Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church, but the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
It's a place there shouldn't be abuse. Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims Jesus.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through spiritual abuse and escaping from toxic church culture while finding hope in Christ.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
The stress and the anxiety and the overall unwellness that you feel when you're in this high demand situation.
Yeah.
You're constantly anxious and overwhelmed and feeling like there's nothing you can do that's good enough and all of these things. That affects you physically.
Yeah. I think of the people, and this is a good place to bring this up. Like, I think of the people that have so many like autoimmune and
chronic
issues, and they're finding that those are all stress related. And then you see how many people do you go to church with that have these issues, you know, what, or who are in, you know, traumatic situations and toxic situations.
It's not being caused by the church necessarily. No. I know that there's people that it was caused by the church, but they come to church seeking help, seeking answers. I'm not feeling well. I don't feel well all of the time. And they're being told, just pray about it.
Right. Instead of let's actually get to the root of it. But like,
and then on top of it, you need to pray about it. Right. And then we're going to lump on all of these things of how you're not good enough.
Right. Yeah. And so, it's interesting to me. I feel like this is a great place to transition into our ADHD segment, because something that I came in one day to you and I was like, I have the best news. I have learned because I've healed trauma in my body from head to toe, mind, body, whatever, right?
Yeah.
All of it, the entire, my consciousness, my subconsciousness, and my physical body, brain, all of it. So much trauma in the last year that I have realized that many of my ADHD symptoms were actually trauma, and a lot of them are gone now. Now I do things and I'm like, nope, that's still the ADHD there.
That's full on ADHD.
But I feel that's full on. I still have ADHD. But what I'm saying is,
which I'm just going to pause real quick. If you want to physically see that, we're going to put on our Patreon. We tried to record an episode, and you could physically watch Melissa, like,
you watch the ADHD
disassociate happen. And then come back into her body, like the realization.
And then it's like, I know people do this, but I've never
watched it. Like knowing that's what you're looking at.
It's on camera, and you watch me completely. I'm focused. I'm not. I have disassociated. I am wherever I am in my brain. Things are going on, and then all of a sudden I realize I'm on camera, so I come back really quick. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's over on our Patreon.
And then once you see it, if you have an ADHD friend, you could watch for it now and be like, oh my gosh, that's exactly, you won't notice it unless you know it happens.
Well, because so many
times, you know what it looks like, you're like, oh.
So many times we catch it at the end. You're annoyed because someone's not paying attention to you, and you're like, hey.
Yeah.
And so, but like to watch it physically happen from start to finish was just. It was my favorite thing.
Yeah. And so if 100% of the things that I was going through, I blamed on being diagnosed with ADHD. I would say 90% of them were trauma and trauma induced.
Yeah.
And I I know I'm not 100% released of all the trauma things. Um, but gosh, I'm so close. I'm so close. And so much of that has been this understanding that God designed our body, God
Mm-hmm.
designed our mind, it's God designed.
Mm-hmm.
And praise God that we've learned these things now. And I look forward to the things that we learn in the future. There's absolutely nothing wrong with looking at what God designed, understanding how it worked, and then working in those parameters.
Yeah.
And that when it comes specifically to ADHD and understanding, like, I think the best thing that has happened in the world of mental health has been the awareness of, we use the terms like neurodiversity, neurodivergent. I love the people that call it being neurospicy. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll find my term, but it's there. Um, I want to start this conversation with ADHD of this understanding of where I'm coming from of unity is diversity.
Yeah.
God himself is diverse.
Oh yeah.
We have a triune God. Okay, well, that's diversity in unity. So everything that stems from that, which is all of this,
Yeah.
there's diversity. You have male, you have female, you have animals and human beings, you have sky and sea and land and all of this in this one
And
big
mountains and
working.
rainforest and desert and
Yeah.
oceans and
So
yeah.
unity is diversity. And this us and them thinking that we have adopted in humanity, not just in organizations, but all of humanity is in this us and them thinking. And so I think the best thing that has happened to mental health has been this awareness that has come into this, like, understanding that
Yeah.
brains are different. They all operate different. Do we have a lot of work to do in that field? Yes, of understanding, because now we talk about spectrums and we talk about this and
Yeah.
we're understanding that things overlap. Well, yeah, they do. Everybody's mind, everybody's brain operates in a way that it should, right? We all have a brain, but all of our brains operate slightly different from each other with different characteristics and different traits and different things that have acted upon it. And we all have a different belief system and we all grew up differently. And there's a lot of uniqueness in all of our selves, even if there's a lot of similarity.
Yeah.
And that we can be unified even though our brains work differently. And you and I can work together. We can get to the same result, even if you take 2 steps and I take 7. But sometimes you got to take 7 steps. And I got there in 1. Like, we've had that happen where I'm like, I'll wait for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what it's like for all the people that deal with me. And I get to be the one who got here first this time. And so that I want to just give that as a disclaimer of where I'm coming from and everything I do to talk about ADHD. But
Yeah.
I want to start with your perspective of ADHD because you are the ADHD whisperer. God has brought you onto this earth. If you have no other purpose, which I know you do, but if you had no other purpose, it would be to wrangle the ADHD people in this world. He has given you a gift to, like, see it, understand it, and work with people whose brains have characteristics that we call
Yeah.
ADHD.
Which I think part of that comes from my if you want to call it my deficit,
Okay.
my superpower, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
over organization.
Yeah.
Very type A, like all of those things.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to look at things and be like, okay, this is how you work. So this is how we need to organize you then. Because that's just what works in this area. I
Yeah.
can and it's something
But
as simple as, like, I can look at a space and be like, okay, the best way to
yeah.
organize my closet is
Yeah.
this.
So I think separating those two things right there, because yes, God has given you the ability to see things and then automatically
Be
sort,
like,
filter,
this is how
organize.
this is going to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that I have met who, um, I'm not downplaying you in any way, shape, or form, but I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of atypical people out there, right?
Yeah.
You are the only one that I've met personally who does that and then can also see the accommodation for how somebody's brain works. Like you said it, you said, I'm able to see what you do. Like you are able to listen to me talk and be like, oh, okay, this is how Melissa's, you can also not just do it with a space, you do it with my mind.
Yeah.
You listen to me talk and then you see how I filter information and then you're able to be like, okay, I need to tell Melissa in this way. A lot of people with your same organization skill are jerks.
Yeah.
And they make no accommodation for people who, how do you not see it my way? Yeah. No, this has to go 1, 2, 3. You can't put them the other way. I've experienced that a lot.
But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that my brother is ADD.
Okay. So you grew up with something. Yes, this is what I'm trying to get to.
Yes, I had it in my home. Okay. My brother was diagnosed, I believe, in first grade. Knowing my dad, seeing him struggle as a grown-ass man. My dad full on has ADHD, no doubt in my mind. But again, when you're in that era, that wasn't a thing. You know,
well, and you're talking about a farm community where the kids who had extra energy or didn't quite fit the mold in that sense, like you're not, you're out at the farm.
No,
you burned it off.
Yeah, there's learning disabilities. There's something that came with that.
Yeah.
But then that's also in the era where like my dad was forced to be right-handed because left-handed people were evil. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's
this kid.
There's that, there's that aspect too. And so, I had it around me. Yeah. I grew up with it. Then I get married. My husband has ADHD, and my, 2 of my 3 children, my daughter isn't diagnosed, but there's things she does. And I'm like, oh, you're a little spicy there.
Once again, and then you wonder, is it environmental? Because you're like,
well, but then I watch my middle son and I'm like, he's not, so I don't know. It's nothing that's ever like impeded her ability to function.
That's how my older daughter is.
My day job, I am, I own a media company, I podcast, and I moonlight at the middle school in the special education department. And I work with kids who have ADHD. Yeah. I can look at a kid in a classroom and I can watch them be like, we're not getting it. Like, you go get a drink, you go take a walk. Yeah. Like,
And I just want to say anybody, all of my atypical friends out there who are jerks about it, who think that because you see the world this way, you need everybody else to see the world. Use your gift, like Amanda, and be like, hey, I can see how to organize this. Maybe I can see it from your perspective on how to organize it. And you might find out you have an amazing superpower.
Yeah. Well, and so to be able to like sit down with a kid and be like, okay, we're missing assignments. Like, you're doing them. Yeah. You're just not turning them in. What do we need to do? Like, walk me through what happens like when you finish an assignment. What makes you put it in your backpack and not put it in the turn-in bin? Yeah. Like
let's go to where's the pain point?
Yeah, like, and how do we fix that?
Yeah, and then is there something that we can do to make this work for you?
Yes. And so it's very encouraged. Mm-hmm. It's very beneficial in the teaching world, in the classroom. Yeah. But what if you're married to that person? Yeah. And we're going to get into this in the marriage episode. So I'm not going to go deep into this part of this right now, but like, when you are being told you have to submit to the person with ADHD. And so whatever they say, your job is to submit and be respectful. And so you're riding the dopamine wherever that may go. And
I just laugh because I know. Yeah.
And how detrimental that is to a relationship.
Oh yeah.
How detrimental that is to the husband who feels like he can't do anything right, and how detrimental that is to the kids.
I said it in a previous episode when I misspoke. You with ADHD, you feel incompetent.
Yes.
You can be successful in some places because the structure there is designed just for you, and people with ADHD tend to gravitate towards jobs where the structure in place is one that works with whatever their blend of ADHD is.
Well, I've told my husband, as successful as he is at his job, it's because of his ability to just squirrel.
Yep. I've been in the restaurant business for 30 years. Why? Because my flavor of ADHD, people are like, how do you do that? Because that's how my brain works. It is designed. My brain connects, works. It's great.
Yeah. If my dryer broke today, I would go to someone who would be able to help me, who can look at the dryer and be like, oh, this is what's wrong. Here's how we fix it. So why can't we do that with our mental health? Why can't we do that with things like ADHD and look at it? And not that there's something wrong with you, but be like, okay, this isn't working at high capacity right now. How can we help the situation so it can work at high capacity?
Yeah. And I've come across, there's a couple ADHD coaches that write blogs and things that I've come across where they write in a way that I understand, because people write all the time, well, do this, 10 steps to this, or how to organize this, or how to do this. That's well and good if that's the way your brain works. If your brain doesn't work that way, and it sees things differently, then you need things written in a way where you're like, oh, that makes sense. And so I learned.
That's the, I'm going to throw this idea out at you. Oh, you don't like that? That doesn't work for you. Okay. How about this? How about this? You and I have gone through that before.
I know you pulled out a paper one time. I was like, anxiety. Just way I can't do that.
What was on the paper was too much. And so that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's take our time. But when you get into these high control religious situations
with black and white thinking,
there is a box.
Yep.
And if
it's this way or no way.
If you don't fit in this box, and I mean, it's stuff as simple as you should have a daily quiet time every morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, before your day gets going, before the chaos of the day. I mean, this is what was told to me as a young mom, before the chaos of the day.
Which most people who have ADHD, their brains function better in the evening, so they tend to be night owls.
So that's great and wonderful. I had doing it. When I had my middle child, this kid would come wake me up at 4 a.m. because he was starving. When he's 2 years old, I started putting him to bed with a little bowl of cereal on the nightstand to be like, when you wake up,
right,
you food. Eat this for do not come wake up mommy. And so I'm like, I can't wake up at 3 a.m. In order to have a quiet time before my kids are up, because my kids are up so early.
Right.
And so being told that's not right, because I found my quiet time worked best when my kids were napping in the afternoon. And so sharing that with other moms, no. You don't tell people. You have to start your day with God.
Right. And I guarantee you in those group settings, though, there were moms who were like, no, that was good. And they'd go home and start
doing it.
They'd
start doing it.
Or they'd be like, oh, no, I get up at 5 a.m., but I'm really doing it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock or
exactly.
whatever.
You're living that fake double life.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem with all of this, is you have a box. And if you don't fit in that box
well, and that's been the problem in the world too, especially if we're talking about mental health and ADHD, is there's this normal. I've erased that word. There's no normal. There is diversity.
The middle schoolers all the time are like, I'm weird. I'm and I'm like, everyone's weird. Everyone's their own flavor of weird.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's a place that we have to get to. And I've loved, so TikTok is like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Of
you learn so much, but then it's not everyone has autism. Can we just be honest?
Okay, well, it's funny that you said that, because my kids laugh, because I'm like, my kids will say something, make a TikTok reference, and I'm like, well, according to TikTok, I am non-functioning with autistic.
Exactly.
And autistic. And they're like, what? I'm like, put a finger down if. I got all 10 fingers down, and you're telling me that I should be non-verbal, non-this, and I'm like, sorry, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But if we take a shopping bag and we go, well, Melissa gets a little bit of this and a little bit of this.
Because not everyone's brain works.
Yeah.
Not
everybody's brain. That's true. I was married to. I'm sorry.
Not everyone's brain works the same way. And
exactly. And that's okay.
The way that might be how that person who made that video, that's how their person that they know in their life who has autism
symptoms
that's how they are, but
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the
I
same
have
for
those same
everyone with those
symptoms,
symptoms.
but that's not the case.
And I don't want to say symptoms like it's something like
No.
characteristics. That's a better word. So
Characteristics, yeah.
that was a poor word
No, no,
choice
no.
on
I
my
like
part.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
characteristics. But there is so much awareness going on. Like there's so many people that are doing great justice to where I've even, so I told you before, I was diagnosed with ADHD in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
In the last year, I've seen so many TikToks of people who are like, this is something that people with ADHD do. And I'm like, oh, that's an ADHD. I do that. The latest one was ADHD, although like everybody right now is currently doing this mom math or
Yeah.
dog math or whatever. Somebody
Girl
did
math. Yeah.
ADHD math. And I went, this is why I was subbing in a math class the other day and I explained something to the kids and they all looked at me. And I thought it was just because I did math, you know, I learned this concept long
Yeah.
before then. But what I realized was what I explained to the kids in the classroom was exactly what this person on TikTok said about the grouping and then adding either one or taking away one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I do that. I try to explain it to people and they always look at me like I'm weird. Well, that's how numbers work in my head. And I'm like, okay, learn something new,
Yeah.
and but it's been good and finding like resources that speak to what I have. Like it was a few years ago where I learned workaround. It was, and I was like, oh, okay, I can do anything. I just need to find my workaround. And I also need to be okay with it. Might take me 6 or 7 steps
Yeah.
more than somebody else. It's not a comparison. As long as I get it done. I mean, even to the point of, as a woman, setting up your home. Um, like, where do you put your dishes? Do you put them conveniently located to set the table? Or do you have them conveniently located for emptying the dishwasher? If you have ADHD, it's probably better. Something to try. Put your dishes closer to where they go, taking them out of the dishwasher, as opposed to where you set the table. The reasoning to that, because you're excited to eat dinner, you're excited to set the table. Like that's a
Yeah.
fun activity, right? So you gravitate towards you will walk further and do more work to set the table.
Yeah.
Getting the dishes out of the dishwasher, no fun. Nobody wants to do
Well,
that.
and
You'll put it off for eternity.
it's a need
Yeah.
also. You
So
need plates
you
and forks
need.
to eat.
Yep. Yeah.
You do not need plates and forks to go in a cabinet.
Exactly. And highly motivated by things that have to get done last minute.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, if you give me a week and a half to do a task that takes 10 minutes, I will do it the last 10 minutes. And it'll take me 10 minutes. And we're good.
Yeah.
Until it doesn't. And then I'm in trouble because I'm like, this was only supposed to take 10 minutes and now it took an hour. And then that's where your friend frustrates you because nothing is ever done at the right time. Or even like teachers, you're frustrated with your student who you're like, now you don't have it done. Yeah, because they misappropriated how much time it was going to take.
You've had all semester to do this. Well,
yep. And I just recently saw another one. They were like, they're like, okay, ADHD people tell time in 2 ways, right? One is you have an appointment at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You will do absolutely nothing until 2 o'clock until you have to leave, like at 1:30, because you don't want to be late. So nothing gets done until
because you're waiting for that. Yeah.
Or there's the other type who is like, oh, I have 6 hours. I'm going to do 12 hours worth of work before I have to go. And then inevitably you can't leave because you have to finish this thing and then you're late.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm both of those people depending on the task. So what I've learned to do though is I need appointments to be in the morning. I need to wake up, get dressed, go to the appointment, and be done with my appointments in the day. Why? Because certain things that I can't, like if I cannot be late to it, I kid you not, I do nothing. If that appointment is at 2 o'clock and then sometimes I'm like early because you have ADHD time where you add 15 minutes into like, you're like, okay, it's 30-minute drive. So I'm going to give myself 45 minutes. It takes me 30 minutes to get ready, let's say. So I'm going to give myself 45 minutes. Okay, well, now I've added 30 minutes of my day. So I'm going to get to that appointment 30 minutes early at that point. And if there's more things I have to do, I add 15 minutes onto every task. So I could be there 4 hours early if you really let me.
Yeah.
But what happens is I will literally do nothing. What are you doing? I have an appointment at 2. There is nothing getting done. I'm not working on projects. I'm not, nope,
Yeah.
because I need to be on time to this appointment. Then when it comes to like, even like when I would work, like I could never be on time to work. Why? Because I'm going to be at work for 10 hours. So X, Y, and Z have to be done before I disappear from my home life for 10 hours. And inevitably, something would take, but it would had to be done. So I would be 15 minutes late to work all the time, all the time, to the point where my daughter works at the place that I used to work at, and I take her to work and I laugh about it. And then she came home and she goes, "Yeah, so the boss laughed about it. It was like, how come your mom can get you to work 15 minutes early, but she was always 15 minutes late?" And I was like, "Because I'm not dressed right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in sweatpants, slippers, and a t-shirt. I'm not going to work. You could be here an hour early. It doesn't matter because I'm going home again."
Yeah.
Like, but if I had to be here and function for 10 hours, I would have been 15 minutes late.
Yep.
That's how it works. And so what I think is really fascinating about listening to your story, because like I said, coming into the church at such a young age and then being modeled into this church,
Yeah.
I was not, I was 34, 35 when I came to the church. And so I had had a whole lot of other life experiences. And one of them, you know, which when we get into like the ADHD part of this conversation, but because of my not understanding when I was a child, like I was convinced there's nothing wrong with me. My parents hated me and they gave me medication to change me because they didn't like who I was. All of that is so ingrained into the narrative that I had as a child. Mm-hmm. I'm not wanted. These people want me to change. I don't have the child. I don't have the cognitive ability to process all of this. So my perspective, my narrative is a mess. And I have a child with ADHD. Actually, I think out of all five of my children, I'm almost convinced they all have ADHD except for one. But then I wonder sometimes, like, and maybe two. There's like two of them. But the second one, I'm like, no, that's definitely an ADHD thing. But some of it, I wonder if it's environmental. Like, did you just learn ADHD coping skills because
because you're surrounded by people with ADHD,
all the people you live with? Yeah. Like, so I have one kid that I definitely am like, that kid does not have ADHD. Yeah. But then that kid will do things, and I'm like, maybe no, that kid just picked up a coping mechanism of his ADHD family. Yeah. But when you look at his success level and like how competent of a human being, and not that ADHD people are not competent, I'm sorry, that was my bad. That's a lie within me that I'm working on changing. So I'm sorry that I said that. When I look at the way that he does life and it's not the way we do life, I'm like, you don't have ADHD. Yeah. That's what I meant. So I apologize to anybody out there, but I will catch myself. This is a topic that is very hard to unwind.
Well, because you have to unlearn like it's like it's so ingrained in every aspect of who, not only if you have ADHD, but in everyone else around you, this narrative
of this ownership and this like, and we've done
of you should be here, and if you can't be here, that's a you problem, and you need to fix it. You need to pray, you need to be in your Bible more. You.
Well, when I had my oldest son who has ADHD and dyslexia, I refused to take him to therapy because of my experience with thinking it was just a lie that my parents hated me and all they wanted to do was give me medicine so that I would behave. Like they just wanted me to sit down and shut up. My parents gave me medicine, but I didn't like the medicine. So then I stopped taking the medicine. Well, what I learned is that I just had to learn to behave. So as long as I didn't get caught not taking the medicine, so I had to act like I was on the medicine. So that went on for a while where I could pretend like I was on the medicine, but I didn't have to take them. Like we talk about Ritalin.
Yep.
And they're like, that's too much. Give them half. Like it was bad. Yeah. It was bad in the 80s. Yep. Ritalin in the 80s was bad. Okay. And I hated it and it was awful. And so as long as I didn't get caught, we were good. But unfortunately, I would get caught sometimes. And the reason why I get caught was because I have ADHD. Instead of throwing the pill in the trash, I'd leave it in my pocket, right? Or I'd forget to actually like it was good. I didn't have to take it. I did well all day at school and I pretended like I'm on it. But then I have two little brothers, and my mom was worried she'd find them in the laundry. And so she was worried one of the babies would take it. So then she was like, we're not doing this anymore. If you're not going to take them. So I got caught, 3 strikes, you're out. But that taught me that behavior modification was a thing.
Yeah.
So for a long time, I believed that everybody with ADHD, behavior modification, that works. Well, anyway, it worked for my oldest son.
Yeah.
So I went to therapy. I went and found an ADHD therapist for my son, but didn't send him. I went and I sat down with her and I was like, okay, I want to help my son, but I want to learn how to help my son. I'm not putting him through this. I'm not medicating him. We will get there. If we need to get there, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But I'm here to learn how to be a parent of a child with ADHD. 30 minutes into that conversation, she goes, it's very difficult for parents with ADHD to parent their children with ADHD because you can't do these things for yourself. So it's very hard to teach. And I go, okay, so what are you talking about? And she's like, with your ADHD. And I'm like, I don't have ADHD. And she goes, yes, you do. And I was like, no, I don't. My parents hated me and medicated me to shut me up. And she goes, so we're not even willing to address the fact that maybe your parents, you're how old now and you have a child and you see these things in your child. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And God bless that lady. She was like, oh, okay, I see where we're starting now.
Yeah.
And she walked me through that. And she helped me understand that I had ADHD and that I couldn't do these things. And so to teach him these things. And so if I wanted to parent better, but she went with me to that place. I'm also been working on changing my dialogue to I have a brain that operates under these characteristics and trying not to say, oh, I have ADHD.
Well, because we all grew up with that there's something wrong with you. Yeah. There's something wrong. It's a deficit. It's you're incompetent.
Let's talk about that really quick.
Because we grow up with all these things. Now, we don't use that language in schools anymore.
No.
And to the point where last year, for Special Education Awareness Month, we put together a video at the middle school. And so not only did we highlight kids in our school who had special needs and what their life was like, but then we also talked to their friends.
Yeah.
And so hearing from kids and be like, it really frustrates me when people treat this girl like she's a baby just because she's in a wheelchair, and they talk to her like a baby, and it annoys me because she's just like we are. Everyone needs to treat her the same. And we had kids that use AAC, the talker devices, the little they're on iPads now, but you can type in what you want to say. So if a student can't communicate fully verbally well, they can use their AAC device. And so we worked with kids of if you had to only communicate, and so we printed out an AAC device on a piece of paper, what the screen would look like. And if you had to type out what you wanted to say, and how frustrating that is when people try to guess what you're trying to say before you can get it all the way typed out, and not give you the time to be able to do that. Or having kids sit at a lower level and have kids stand around them with backpacks so they can know what it feels like to walk down the crowded hallway if you were in a wheelchair and you're at a lower level, and how intimidating that can feel. And hearing these kids, I was editing this video and I was sobbing because these kids are just the language they have now is not there's something wrong with that kid. They're weird. What's wrong with them? Their language is so you have to get to know them. You have to know them as a person. And it's just, it's so crazy how in just 1 or 2 generations, it is completely changed. And
that is so good. It is. That is such a good.
And we can I catch myself saying things, and there's been a couple times where I've said something and a student will correct me. I mean, Miss Amanda, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, that's a wrong word. That was a poor word choice. I should not have said that, and I apologize. because these kids understand that it's not something that's wrong with you. If you have,
this is who you are, and this is what you do, and it's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay
and
to operate in that way.
how open and honest kids are about, like, like, well, I'm bipolar.
Right.
And
yeah, I have been really impressed with the things that the language that kids have to be able to say, like, I'm struggling with this, and because of that, whatever, I need this, this, and this, or whatever. I mean, like, to be able to advocate for yourself, but to give it a name. Um and I'm glad that they're able to do that, because for a long time a lot of the practices was like, name your depression Debbie, and they'd be like, oh, there's Debbie talking again, or whatever, like, but they found such significance in people being able to name their stuff.
Well, and then to hear kids talk in the hallway and be like, hey, do you want to come over after this or whatever? And be like, no, I have therapy today. So how about we do it like, and normalizing the prioritizing of your mental emotional, and physical health.
Yeah, and that's really where we need to get to, and understanding, like, and that's what I've something else, like, that's what I got so excited for. I was like, let's talk about this. When I got my hands on a book, and I honestly don't know, I've looked for this book again and I can't find it. Like, I've gone through even like all of my search history, because, like, I have like 9,000 emails that I had to delete the other day, because I was like, Melissa, you have a problem. No, I don't have a problem. This is problematic, so we can fix it. I tried to find the book, but I couldn't. But it talked about the frontal lobe, the functioning, and, like, it broke down ADHD in a, like to the root.
Yeah.
And, like, I found this book way too late. Not way too late, but I mean, it helped, because I have 5 different kids, right, who all have their unique brain, which they should have, and they have their unique processes. But then I have, these kids who all have an ADHD, and understanding that behavior modification worked for my oldest son. And I said earlier I was going to talk about this, and I'm so glad that I remembered. So for me, behavior modification worked. Why? Because in my, I don't know if you look at, like, in my processes, right? So you have different processes. I kind of picture it like a sound, like if you were to do your EQ on sound, and you have the different bars that you set it to different levels to get different things. To me, that is a picture of how the ADHD brain characteristics work. And so, non-verbal working memory, I am not deficit in my non-verbal working memory, which means if I start talking too much and you make a face, my brain goes, oh, that means you're talking too much. I correct my behavior. It's not verbal. You didn't give me a verbal cue. It becomes a problem when you have trauma added on that. This is something that I learned was more trauma than I have that. So then because I'm not deficit there, every little thing, you could not even, we're talking about the subtlest, a muscle could relax in your forehead. Nothing anybody ever notices, but I was so hyper focused. I was continually modifying my behavior to the environment, because I was so hyper focused on, I don't know, the temperature. I don't know. The wind could blow a different way, and I'd be like, am I doing something wrong? So I went the other way.
Probably because you were like, I don't want to take the medication. So how do I fix it?
Yes. And so, like, with everything I had, I became, but that part of my brain worked so great. It was primed for hyper focus, right? And it was primed to overtake the world, because it was like, I can do this. So, but I have a child with a totally different, like, levels of things that they're deficit in than me. Even my son, who behavior modification worked for him, because his nonverbal working memory, but now I see his overcompensations, and I'm like, oop. So I'm trying to help him work through that, because he's done the same thing where he's like, did I do something wrong? No. Something shifted in the atmosphere even, and you are, like, reacting to it. But my one daughter, you can give that girl 25 dirty looks, she don't understand. And then you're like, daughter, yeah. And she'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, got it. 2 minutes later, you give her the look again. Has no clue. Why? Because her nonverbal working memory is deficit. She does not realize. And some of you are sitting there right now going, oh, I have that friend that interrupts all the time, and everybody gives them dirty looks, and they have no clue that it means stop talking.
Yeah.
Their nonverbal working memory is deficit. And so if you have all of these people, and we can all say we have ADHD, but guess what? ADHD is diverse within itself. We all have a different level of things that are deficit and
Everyone's
not
their
deficit.
own flavor.
Totally, exactly. And so I feel like that is like the most important thing that we can come to a conclusion on this is like, let's celebrate the diversity, because diversity is unity. And unity is not standardization. It's all of us coming together as we are and growing together. And I don't think we've had any struggles. I think we both can say honestly that we recognize times where we bump into each other.
Oh yeah.
And we've had to be like, okay. And both of us are very good at going, well, no. So even to the point of being annoying, where I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. You pick. And you're like, well, it doesn't matter to me. You pick. And neither one of us wants to be the enforcer of what's going to happen. So I think we actually fault more on that end. Oh, like, no, your turn. No, your turn. No, your turn. Then we do the other way. So
but
there's
I feel
room
like
for both.
Overall, like, I mean, those instances have been so rare.
Yeah, they're so rare.
In the last 3 years.
But
like,
I do think it's funny
maybe
that that's
like on one hand I could count the amount of times that we've done that.
I'd agree.
But for the most part, it is that like, okay, this is what we're doing. And I don't look at it as like, you know, Melissa needs to edit an episode. I need to, oh my God, why can't she just not edit it? Like, it's the, okay, I'm going to make sure
because that really happened.
I remind her.
Hey, Melissa, you have 2 days left. How long is it going to actually take you?
Yeah.
2 days. So.
Yeah. So like, I'm just going to like, okay, I'm going to mention it here. And then I'm going to wait a little bit. And then I'm going to mention it here.
Can you tell this really happened?
Yeah.
And it got done 2 hours before it needed to be done for my comfort zone. It should have been done a few days before for Amanda's comfort zone.
But
it got done.
It got done and the episode got posted on time. And that's what it is.
And that's,
And that's healthy for me.
Yeah.
To not go down that, because I can get very, like, when I was living like my perfect little stay-at-home church housewife life, it was the like, I would sweep and mop my floors 3 times a day.
Right.
I would dust every
day. You've been
day.
down the wrong side of that.
I've gone down the deep, dark rabbit hole of hyper focus and type A and perfectionism and all of those things in a very unhealthy way.
Which
and
we'll talk about, but...
like, I need that to help me realize, like, in the grand scheme of things, whether the episode is scheduled a week out to post or the episode is scheduled 2 hours out to post.
Right.
Is the episode posting when we said it would post?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and even though I tried really, really hard to be like, I know it needs to be, like, I knew, and I even told you, I verbalized to you, I understand for your comfort zone that I need to have this done. I still could not get it done until that crunch time. Like, I even tried to fake crunch times, you know? So there's work to be done. But honestly, like, we need to do better with everybody and take example from these younger generations that are learning to do this ahead of time.
And not put everyone in this box of like, this is how you Christian.
Yep.
And that includes...
Yeah, because Jesus is for the world.
Yeah.
And there's no way that every single person on the face of this earth, in every country, on every continent, is going to do the exact same thing the same way every single time. And it's stupid. That's asinine for us to think that that's how Christianity has to be.
And it's stupid to think that Christianity has to be...
When God's for the whole world.
According to writings that were written before we understood mental health.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Get some new perspective. Open your mind. Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.